And we're continuing from the previous video. One of the key events in the history of the early republic is the passage of the 12 Tables. The 12 Tables are a set of laws that are passed that, up until this point, justice was administered by the consuls and the praetors in a way that was somewhat arbitrary, that had to do with, what their own families believed in, and the power of the patricians and so forth. The 12 Tables established public law, and the idea that law is owned by the public, and that precedent, firmly governs what is done in the future. That law and justice are not arbitrary, but is conditioned by what the people have done, and what is established as being the right thing to do. And so the tradition is established of law being public, being published in writing, and being something that is owned by the people. And from this point onward, justice is always conducted sort of literally and figuratively in the open air of the forum for everyone to see. One of the ways in which the struggle of the orders plays out is that since the consuls in the very early republic are controlled by the patricians, some years the plebeians would get a replacement set of officials that could be held by plebeians, the military tribunes with consular power. And so, there's a period in the 400s in which Rome goes back and forth from year to year. Some years they would have consuls, they were patricians, and other years they would have military tribunes with consular power that were plebeians. And the consuls were always fixed at 2, but the military tribunes with consular power could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so the Romans are establishing this tradition of plural leadership. Either way, the function of the chief executives of the Roman state, first and foremost, is to lead Rome's armies against its enemies. And from the beginning of the Republic, the Romans are on the defensive against increasingly aggressive peoples living all around them. The Etruscans to the north are hostile. The hill peoples to the east are hostile, and the Romans, to protect themselves, become more and more engaged in a state of almost constant war every year during the campaign season between the harvest. The 3 or 4 month period in the middle of the year. The Roman leadership, whether it's consuls or military tribunes with consular power, are in the field fighting against Rome's enemies. Finally, we get radical legislation that more or less brings the struggle of the orders to an end. The Licinio-Sextian laws open up the consulship to plebeians, and so this establishes that the plebeians and the patricians are all eligible to be consuls, and the Lex Hortensia, which is passed at the several decades later, establishes that the plebiscites, the laws that are passed by the plebeian assembly, are binding on all Romans. And this essentially eliminates the divide between patricians and plebeians in the leadership of the Roman state. But the tension between the few and the many continues to exist, and if anything, gets worse once Rome has acquired an empire, and the world is much more complicated for them. The key officials of the Roman Republic. Remember that everybody goes through the same ladder of offices in the same order, and so this is the cursus honorum. At the top of this is, sort of the ultimate office, the censor. The censor conducts the census, but also determines who is a member of the Senate. And this is contingent on 2 things: how much property you have, whether you meet the property requirement, and whether you are morally upright. and people are stricken from the senatorial roles if the censor believes that they have been morally suspect, if they have been engaged in moral turpitude. This is the way in which this is done is to place a black mark against your name in the senatorial rolls, and even to this day, this is an expression: have a black mark against your name because of moral failings. The consul, there's two consuls, and these lead Rome's armies and administer the governance of the city. They take leadership of the city in turns from 1 month to the next. And so underneath this is the praetors. The praetors are responsible primarily for carrying out justice and the more mundane aspects of taking care of the city. The aediles are responsible for temples and for the treasury. The quaestors are responsible for provisioning the army and for other seeking of political intrigue and problems of that nature. And you start out your career as a military tribune. Everybody performs military service as an officer in the army, and this demonstrates your qualifications for office. The most important qualification for being a higher official, especially a consul, is to know your way around war, to have experience with it, and to have demonstrated manliness in the battlefield, courage, and smart thinking, and a lack of cowardice. And so, there's a story about Coriolanus standing for office very early in the history of the Republic, where a person comes up to him and asks him, why should we elect you to be consul? What are your qualifications? What proves you to be a worthy man? And Coriolanus demonstrates this by removing his toga and tunic and exposing his scars from battle. And then he turns around and shows that all of his scars are on the front, that he has no scars on his back, that he never ran from battle. There are also the tribunes of the plebs. The plebeians elect their own officials, and the tribunes of the plebs have a very important role. They're essentially advocates for preventing the state from being oppressive to its citizens. And so the tribunes of the plebs have special capabilities, special attributes. Their persons are sacrosanct. That means to assault a tribune of the plebs is a religious crime. Second, they have the ability to veto acts of the government, and third, they have the ability to take any problem that a citizen brings to them and put it before the Roman people. This is the right of appeal. Any citizen who feels like the government is doing him an injustice, is treating him unfairly, can go to a tribune of the plebs and have the matter decided by the Roman people. And so the tribunes of the plebs are, one of the ways in which the Romans adapt to the problems that they have, and we'll talk more about adaptation later. The main problem with this is there are 10 tribunes of the plebs, and if one of the tribunes of the plebs is loyal to the elite, or has been bought off by some conservative rich person, then you can have radical tribunes and conservative tribunes vetoing each other. And so the ability of the tribunes of the plebs to enact change and to protect the Roman citizens varies according to the moment, according to how divided and polarized the Roman people are. The other special offices of the Roman Republic are sort of the dictator is chosen in the event of an emergency. Essentially, the idea behind a dictator is if a real extreme crisis develops, it's possible that the two people that you've elected consul might not be the ideal person to resolve that crisis. And so there's a provision for the consuls to choose a dictator, someone who takes total power in order to resolve a specific crisis, and then immediately resigns. And the fascinating thing about the dictator is, over the course of the first 3 centuries of the Republic, there are nearly 90 individual dictatorships. And in none of these cases does a dictator attempt to abuse the extreme power that he has. The dictator is elected, is chosen by the consul, not elected by the people, and has absolute authority to resolve a crisis. But that absolute authority does not extend to dominion over the Roman citizen body or abuse of power beyond the crisis in any way. This is extremely effective. There are a number of major victories and major internal reforms that are brought about by dictators that were appointed to resolve a crisis that endangered the future of Rome itself. The interrex is a special official that's chosen if there's a gap between elected officials. Usually, the interrex is appointed in order to conduct elections if the consuls are out of town. The elections have to be conducted by the consuls. Normally, if the consuls are both off at war, then you could either choose a dictator or an interrex to conduct elections and ensure that the next slate of consuls is duly chosen by the people. The princeps senatus is the most important, most respected member of the Senate, not necessarily the longest serving, but usually. And this princeps means first. And the main point of this is the princeps senatus speaks first in the Senate. But, this is sort of the one place in the Republic where there's a person that is sort of preeminent as a result of, all of the things that he is given. But, the princeps senatus has no official power. He's simply the senator who speaks first. And the Senate itself, remember, has no political power either, just has influence as a result of the collective auctoritas of its members. And then, the other sort of individual that has a special role in Roman society is the Pontifex Maximus, the chief priest. And so the Pontifex Maximus helps guide the priestly colleges and helps determine policy, and so has more influence than anyone else over the state religion. But the Pontifex Maximus is usually someone who is not a political figure. The Romans are very careful about ensuring that its most important priests can't also be consul at the same time, can't also be generals in war. And by this means, there's sort of a balance between people who are important because of religion and people who are important because they are the elected leadership of the Republic. Ultimately, what matters about the Roman Republic is that all of these functions, all of these officials, all of these structures are designed to ensure that the body of the ruling class governs Rome collectively, and that none of them stand above the others. The Republic endures in this way and gains the conquest of empire in this way over 500 years, and how it starts to fall apart is part of the story of how the Republic functions and what it tells us about the Romans. We'll get to that story in due course. For now, that's that.